The annual Mapletown Lantern Festival was in full swing. The sky was filled with colorful lanterns, and the scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. Everyone was having so much fun. Suddenly, a little girl gasped. She looked at her shadow, then at her friend's shadow, then back again at her own. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed. "Your shadow just ran away." The girl's shadow had taken on a life of its own and was scampering around the corner of a building. This wasn't anything new for Mart, though. Every year at the festival, the townspeople's shadows would come alive and run away. And every year, Mart, along with his best friends, Max and Omar, would chase after them. They quickly found the little girl's shadow, who was hiding behind a hay bale, giggling uncontrollably. "Don't be scared," said Mart, kneeling down to her level. "We're gonna help you find your owner." But when he turned to leave, the shadow grabbed his leg and pulled him back. "Hey, let me go," Mart protested, but the shadow just shook its head and pointed in the direction of the old abandoned water tower. Shadows were supposed to follow their owners, not lead them on a wild goose chase. And that's exactly what all the other shadows were doing, leading their owners on merry chases all around town. Max and Omar had tracked down Max's shadow, who was climbing as fast as he could up the ladder of the fire escape. But before they could reach him, the shadow jumped onto the roof and disappeared from view. "It's no use," sighed Max. "He's too quick for us." But then they heard a voice. "Too quick for you, maybe," it said, "but not for me." The three friends turned to see the town baker standing there with a big smile on his face and a net in his hands. "I used to be the fastest shadow chaser in Mapletown," he said, "before an unfortunate incident made me retire from the sport." He explained that the shadows had been acting funny all week, getting restless and refusing to stay in their usual places. He knew something was up and had spent the last few days tracking their movements. "I think I know where they're going," he said, leading the children toward the edge of town. As they came out of the last row of houses, they saw hundreds of shadows gathered in front of the old abandoned water tower, all of them giggling and playing tag. In the middle of the circle stood a tall, dark figure with a crown-like object on his head. The children quickly hid behind a tree, and the baker put a finger to his lips. "Shh," he whispered. "That's the Shadow King. And if he sees you, you'll become part of his shadow army, and we can't have that." The Shadow King was tall and imposing, but he didn't seem to notice the children watching him. He was too busy trying to tag one of the runaway shadows. They were playing a game very similar to tag, except instead of tagging someone with their hands, they tagged each other with their shadows. As the children watched, they couldn't help but start laughing. It was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. Soon, they weren't just watching anymore. They were playing too. They ran into the circle and joined the game. The Shadow King turned around and saw them. "Oh, more players," he said with a smile. "Excellent." Let the games begin. Mart, Max, and Omar played until their sides hurt from laughing. It was the most fun they'd ever had, and even though they were exhausted, they didn't want the game to end. But as the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, the Shadow King's smile faded. "It's time for me to go," he said. "See you next year." And with that, he vanished along with the rest of the shadows. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the children's laughter echoed through the now quiet town. They had faced the Shadow King and his army and won. They had turned a potentially scary night into the most fun festival ever. And as they walked home, hand in hand, they knew that this was a story they would tell for years to come.